Mr. Pond Boss,
here we go.
tell me what to do.
Let's go live for a little bit.
All my Lunker Lake dream come
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live from College Station, Texas. I'm at the Texas A&M University. There's Kyle Field right there behind me in a picture. Get to hello, William Scheidegger and Bill Schrum. Good to see you guys. Howdy is the right word for where I am. So I've been on a little whirlwind, except the last 4 days we've been hunkered down, frozen like a lot of you have been. But got to do the Society of Lake Management Professionals last week. Got home from that on late Thursday afternoon. I was blessed with some knucklehead on the airplane coughing and hacking and sneezing. When I heard the kind of coughing, I knew that I was going to be blessed with something that might test my immune system. Chris Chavetta, yeah, man, we're finally getting a little bit of warmth. The ice is thawing out. I was able to navigate the roads to drive down to College Station this afternoon. Hello, Jeremy Day. I'm not far from you. John Henry, looks like we made it. Didn't they make that a song? So on the way down, I called John Dyer, and he said, do you have a topic? I said, no, I never have a topic. I don't think about a topic until just before the show. He says, well, why don't you do this? He said, why don't you just pose the question, if you caught a 10-pound bass, what would you do with it? Speaking of John Dyer, there he is. And John is the one that's setting up these links and coaching me on how to do this right. Anyway, I get to give so that's going to be the topic. That's what we're going to start with. So I get to be a guest lecturer in the morning at 9:30 for Dr. Beth Sylvie's pond management class in the Rangeland, Wildlife, and Fisheries Management Department. So yes, there is a pond management class. Heavy on the word management because there are lots of hands-on with that. Matter of fact, they participate some in the field days that we do at Bays in the spring and the fall. And it's going to be fun then on Thursday. So then I get to go hang out with Ron Ardoin. Tomorrow, he's really been wanting me to come down and get a special project. He's been working around Huntsville, Texas. And for those of you that know about Huntsville, that's where the prison is. I can't think of a better place for Ron to be working on a lake than Huntsville, Texas. And I can't wait to go climb behind his bars and take a look at what he's done because the pictures I've seen have been just astonishing. Taking a shot. There's Ron right there, taking a few shots of Crown cooking gumbo, John Dyer and Bill Schrum's favorite. Boudin gumbo, yeah. I know what that is. So let's see, William. So I'm going to get to that topic here in a minute. Thursday morning, I get to speak to a guest lecture in the Outdoor Enterprise Management class in RWFM department here at Texas A&M. And that's pretty cool. That's a track where young people can go through a track to learn how to manage hunting ranches. They learn everything about how to harvest animals, to process them, to cook them 5-star and present them, to manage the ranch, to manage the wildlife habitat or the fisheries habitat, or they can go manage a hunting lodge or a fishing lodge. So I love where this department is going, and I'm glad to be playing a small part of it. So here we go. Let's talk about this. William Scheidegger got you actually received the November, December issue. Wow, it's kind of late, wasn't it? Thanks for the great service. And by the way, you know what? William, you've got a question in the upcoming March, April issue. The question you posed about paddlefish, I believe, is going to be in that one. So we're going to talk about that. Yep. So let's see here. The gumbo is, I'll pass on the store-bought boudin. Yeah, there's a little inside joke, but it's not really funny, right, you guys? So thank you. Caught the first and only fish off the ice while listening to last week's live stream. Now, see, that's kind of cool. If you can be ice fishing and listening to me talk all this smack about fish and ponds, that's pretty cool. So what size rock would you use on a big overflow? I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. Let's talk about the topic. So you catch a double-digit bass, a 10-pound bass. You've never caught one before. You've been managing that lake feverishly, fervently, and that's been one of the goals. And you catch that 10-pound, 11-pound, 13-pound bass, whatever it is, what are you going to do with it? Well, haven't you caught it before now? So I'm going to come at this from several angles just to provoke and promote a little thought process here. Because you got a lot of options. Of course, the most obvious one is like what Bill Schrum says. You weigh it, you measure it, you release it, you put it back in the lake and hope that you can catch it again. It's really interesting. I follow the Texas Share-Lunker program quite a bit, and there's one bass. I can't think of the name of the lake. It's J.B. Thomas, I think. Uh-oh. Thanks to the guy behind me in the airplane Thursday. Appreciate that. I probably sneezed 30 times today, but I do have some water. Don't have any cough syrup. I got to go up to the bar and do that later. So, but there's this one guy that has caught the same fish every year for the last 3 years and entered it in the Share-Lunker program. That news release came across my email inbox today, and I didn't get a chance to really read it because I was busy. But I can't wait to see if it's gained weight, lost weight. Is it the same as it was? What was it? It's a little over 13 pounds. He caught it off a dock at that lake. It's up just south of Post, Texas. Y'all look it up and tell me what it is. I don't think it's J.B. Thomas. That was down now near Snyder. But anyway, I have fished that lake, and it's not easy. But there's one fish that lives right beside the dock, and this guy apparently is the only one that catches it. So he's caught that fish 3 times. So you got to keep that in perspective. So if you finally catch that giant bass of your dreams and you weigh it, you measure it, you release it, why are you doing that? You're going to do that primarily so you have another chance to catch it again when it's bigger. That's one reason. The second reason is so it can reproduce. Well, I can shoot a hole in that logic because that fish has already reproduced because it's probably 6 or 7 years old. If it's 10 pounds, which means it has been reproducing. So its genes are injected in that gene pool. You got to keep in mind a bass that big is a girl. And so those female bass, especially those that are that big, they spawn before any of the other bass do in the entire lake. So they're spreading their genes. They don't just spawn in one nest because not all their eggs are ripe at the same time. They may spawn in 3 nests or 2 or 12. You know, and it kind of depends on that season, that year, and that particular lake. You know, so it's another choice is you can eat it. If you do that, don't ever call me again. That's not an option. You know, in order for a bass to make it to 10 pounds, I am so convinced that you and I have greater odds of being struck by lightning than that bass did of getting to be double digits. You know, that's a 1 in 17 million chance, especially if that fish was hatched in your lake. If it was stocked in there, the odds are a little bit better. But that fish had to have the right happy water all the time, food chain all the time, the right kind of habitat that it needs all the time in order for it to be able to excel and grow to that size. And it's going to be one of the few fish in that that age class that's going to have the chance to do that. So, and what's another choice? Donate it to Bass Pro Shops, under the conditions that they put it in the aquarium where you can go see it and share it with a lot of people. You know, so it's not as easy as a decision as we think it is, because especially if you've got a pretty big lake and you catch that 13.5 pound bass and you know that bass has got to be 10 or 12 years old, how many more years has it got left? You know, now a 10 pound bass that's 6 or 7 years old, it's got 7 or 8 years left. But if you catch, say, a 13.5 pound bass, it doesn't have that many years left. And what are the odds you're going to catch it again? The odds are pretty low. So I do think it's a fish that is that size is worthy to be cared for and contributed to the Share-Lunker program. There's other states now that are building Share-Lunker programs. Arkansas is doing that. I think Missouri's doing that. I think Oklahoma's doing that. And you need to look that up and see it. Look at that. Chris, you bet I love his answer. Weigh it, measure it, kiss it, and name it Bob after the pond boss, and thank God for a great day. That's pretty good. So there's some of the choices. You know, you can. I'll tell you this. I managed a fish farm for a few years back in the 80s. And that's when big bass, that's when that was really in private waters was really beginning to catch on, because there were several state records that had been broken within the past 7 or 8 years. And records were being broken pretty regularly at that point in the early 80s to mid 80s. And I had several guys call me, and what they said was, if you are ever able to grow a bass that's 12 or 13 pounds, we'd like to syndicate it. And there were like 15 guys, 10 guys, I can't remember. Each one of them wanted to put in $10,000 to syndicate that bass, bring it back to my fish farm and spawn it and sell the babies. And so they wanted to pay big dollars for that fish and then put it in my hands to have it reproduce with some primo male Florida bass and see if we could grow some offspring and turn around and sell them for $4 or $5 a piece. Well, I never had a landowner willing to do that, and I didn't have that fish farm very long because at that point I kind of had to make up my mind. Do I want to be in the lake management business or the fish hatchery business? So you see what I picked. So let's see here. Let's hit some questions here. Jeremy Day, what size rock would you use on a big overflow? Overflow, I'm presuming you mean like a spillway. And would 100-gallon minute per well be enough to maintain a 10-acre lake in the summer in southeast Texas? Trying to figure out the size I need for a pond. Here's the answer to that. The size of rock that you want to use in an overflow spillway is going to be directly related to the size of the watershed that feeds that 10-acre lake. So if you've got a 300-acre watershed and you get that frog strangling big rain, you better have some rocks, some riprap that are bigger than volleyballs, or they're going to get washed out. And the size, width, and depth of the spillway is a function of how big the watershed that feeds it. So some guys use riprap on a spillway. Some, put on top of geotech cloth. The geotech cloth is anchored where it can't be undermined. Some guys will build a really wide spillway and turf it, put Bermuda grass on it in that part in the country. Maybe different kinds of grasses. In the different parts of the country, like where Chris Chavetta lives. Over there, it would be oh Lord, what's that grass everybody's got, Chris? It's escaping me. Has no nutrition in it at all. Cattle don't like it, but it holds the soil together. Or some people will concrete it. That's pretty pricey. So let's see here. Cooking contest for the next Institute of Higher Pondology. Bring extra toilet paper. Well, that's because you and your buddies, your running buddies, are going to be the only Cajuns there, I think. But I kind of like the idea of a cooking cook-off, a cooking contest. That'd be kind of fun. Let me think about that. So Scheidegger says, your varsity team before they get to the big leagues, butchering the quote, but I remember the story. That's it. Don't eat the JV. Like that's basically what I told Bill Dance decades ago. You're harvesting your 4-pound bass. Are they boys or girls? They're girls. A 4-pound bass cannot get to 8 pounds in a skillet. So be thoughtful about what you want to release. Let's see here. It's probably been 4 or 5 years now since we caught bass in a muskrat trap, but we catch trap multiple times a year. Got plenty of photos of him. He just swims just fine and loves to eat and feed and lures. So you got one bass that comes into the muskrat traps. Well, I'm glad you're not using a conibear on him because you'd have 2 bass snapped right in the middle of his backbone. Pea gravel or need. Okay, so Jeremy Day says pea gravel, a need or a nice to have. Is it worth trying to add to a big pond or a grow out pond? So here's the way I see pea gravel. Pea gravel is a great substrate for spawning beds. And since bluegill are the backbone of the food chain, you're really, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a bass pond where there's inadequate spawning beds available for the bluegill to reproduce, and therefore they're the limiting factor. So yeah, you can add some. It's not easy to do, but you only got to put it in water 3 feet deep. And if you can put it on top of shade cloth or geotech cloth, that's even better because it doesn't allow it to sink down in the mud. And when there's silt that gets into the gravel, the fish can sweep it out. Let's see. I'm going to say pea gravel is nice to have unless all you have is soft bottom mud like clay that isn't compacted. If that's the case, then it's a need. So let's see here. Bill Schrum, I was watching a Facebook Live from 2021. See, 25, 24, 23, 22, 5 years ago. And you were talking about nanobubble technology. At the time, it was expensive. Has the cost decreased since then? No, it has not. No, it's not. It has not decreased. So here's what's going on. I'm glad you brought up nanobubble. There's Greg McMillan. The first double digit out of his pond is deserving of a replica. I'm with you, buddy. And you're going to put it back in your pond because odds are high you're going to catch it again. in your pond. Greg McMillan is doing some really, really cool stuff. He's working with water quality, and we're going to write about that. I don't think I can get it in the March, April issue, but it'll be in the next issue after that for sure. So let's go back to nanobubble. Nanobubbles it's a machine that's used in industry that can take gases and break them down into microscopic bubbles and inject them into the water or another solution. And in essence, it's injecting it in there where it's dissolved. So the bubbles don't rise. They're dissolved in the water. But the issue that the nanobubble folks are having with private ponds and lakes is that when they're injecting nanobubbles, basically the machine's real expensive. It's like 10 grand. It might do an acre to 2 acres. I'm maybe a little off on that, but that's close. But what happens is it's pulling air in and extracting the bigger gases and taking oxygen, refining it, compressing it, and sticking it in the water, which that sounds great. And when they inject it under the thermocline, in theory, that's a brilliant idea. In reality, it doesn't last because there's so much microbial activity going on under the thermocline in that anoxic water that the bacterial colonies are consuming that oxygen faster than the nanobubble machine can inject it. So even though it makes good sense, here we go. Hey, Bob, greeting from the area of the former Pond Boss World Headquarters. That must be like Gordonville, because that's where we were. And I remember the Woody family. See, fire department, firefighters, good friends. The Pond Boss World Headquarters is still centered in downtown Whitesboro, by the way. That's where Leanne hangs her hat when she's not frozen out. Let me back up here and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep. Okay. So Ross Chapel. Let's see. Oh, come on. Something ain't working for me here. Okay. He says, hey there, boss. You mentioned donating a double-digit bass to Bass Pro Shops out of Springfield, Missouri. Do all the other? Well, I'll tell you what they have. Great question. Uh-oh. Messed up something here. Bear with me a minute. John Dyer, I clicked on something. Now let me see it. Chapel? God dang it. Guys, bear with me here a minute. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but I'm doing something wrong. Chat messages. Okay, no deleted messages. Here I am talking to myself. All right, do all the other stores have, they don't have biologists, but they do have people that attend to the fish in each store. But they have a team of people. It's the fish acquisition team. And on any given day, there's 50,000 live animals in exhibits in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's around the nation. So they've got special teams. They've even got fish pathologists on staff, and some are on retainer, like the University of Florida and folks like that. So acquiring fish is a huge deal. And most of the time when they get a double-digit fish like that, it goes to Springfield where it's quarantined. Now, if it's caught, say, in the Metroplex, there's a quarantine facility at both Bass Pro Shop stores in the Metroplex, one in Grapevine, one in Rockwall. So they can quarantine those fish, and they're not going to introduce them to the aquarium until they've been quarantined and tested and make sure they don't have any parasites or diseases or anything like that. All right, so, and I may have missed some things here. And if I have, y'all bear with me because these questions are disappearing. All right, so Ross says, what's better at controlling algae and moss, carp or tilapia? Well, algae is a really good tool to use tilapia for. So tilapia, of course, not every state are they legal. Actually, they're not legal in all the states at all. Like Illinois, they're illegal. Missouri, they're illegal. So grass carp or white amur, they're pretty good for like rooted aquatic plants. The thing is they got to be able to bite it. they don't have any teeth. You know, trying to eat algae is like eating snot, or trying to bite a cattail. Can't do it. Anybody tell you look like Denver Pyle, Uncle Jesse, Dukes of Hazzard? That was probably another life. Or Grizzly Adams. I like that one even better. Both of those are great. No. Wait. Somebody probably has said that to me and I didn't file it. Chapel. All right. Yep. Yeah, dude. Yes. Woodford is good. Try some Bibb and Tucker next time. All right. So I am not seeing any more questions. So I'm going to pause a minute and see what I've done wrong here. Oh, now they're popping up, I think. My wife is calling me. Let's see what she's got. Hey, honey.
Yeah.
You never guess what I'm doing.
I don't know.
Let me see what these questions are here. What's better at controlling algae and moss, carp or tilapia? We talked about that one.
Oh, good Lord, you're on your show. Sorry. Oh, my bad.
All right, let me call.
You didn't call me and tell me you were there.
I was late, baby. I got here just in time to go live. So I will ring you later, right? All right, bye. I forgot to call her when I got to this hotel. Oops. Okay, guys. So let's see here. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm gonna have to come up with something. I don't know if they're disappearing or what. So let me, I'm really trying to learn my way to navigate YouTube Live, and I think this is the third show we've done. All right, so I'm gonna have to come up with something. I wasn't ready for that, so let me think about it a minute. All right, so here's something. 35 states have been locked down on this deep freeze. And so one of the questions is going to be, how will that affect my pond? Odds are pretty good that it's not going to hurt things. As a matter of fact, it got so cold so fast that even with a little skim of ice, I remember in the deep freeze we had in 2021 that there was a lot of lakes where threadfin shad didn't even die, which surprised me. Let's see, John Dyer's texting me here, so let me see what he's got. I'm looking at last week's comments. Okay, so YouTube Live 127. All right. I do not know how to navigate this at all. I suck at it because I did something a while ago. I don't know what I did. Guys, coach me up here. Yep, I see now where I'm answering 113.26. Okay, the only thing I'm seeing from 127 is they're in the chat. Well, I'm in the chat. So let me see here if I can figure this out. Good gosh, guys, it's kind of embarrassing. So it says chat messages in the last year. Let me back up on channel link. Oh, wait, I think I found it. Oh, I backed up. So I clicked out of this. Oh, wow, there's a bunch of stuff here. Oh, there it is. Okay, woo, good job. I've got a local creek that I've been allowed to access and given permission to take rocks from to add to our lake. Should I leave the rocks out of the lake for a specific time to allow algae to die? With an overabundance of caution could be smart to do, because that creek may have some things that are microscopic that you don't know that you don't want. Now, I'm not going to say that's the case, but I think just out of sheer caution, lay those rocks out, let them dry. I would not take them straight to the lake. Jeremy Day, is there a rule of thumb for gallons per minute for well? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we were on that a while ago. So here's the way that works. You guys that want to figure this out, we were talking about the spillway and riprap and all that, and then part of that question was 100 gallon a minute well. So here's the math you need to do. 1 acre, 1 inch deep is 27,000 gallons of water. So if you've got a well pumping 100 gallons per minute, multiply that by 60 minutes, multiply that by 24 hours, and that's how much water it can produce. Then you divide that by 27,000, or if it's a 10-acre lake, that's 270,000. That's going to tell you how much water that well is going to add to the pond. So that's the rule of thumb, and you really don't want to be pumping a well 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You just need to use it to supplement it. That's my take on it. Let's see here. Wyan Dwin. Good evening. Thinking of looking at a different property with goals in mind. What are some items to look for in a property with a tank dedicated to fishing? It has a well, 30 gallons per minute, 0.75 acres. So the first thing I would look at is how old is it? Go back on Google Earth. See if you can go all the way back to before it was built. Learn how old it is. Find if there's any invoices where anything's been done with it. Has it been stocked with fish? Has it been managed? I would be digging in if I would be looking at things as well, such as if you're going to build a house, what kind of soils do you have? Can you put a septic tank in? What's the access to utilities? Talk to the sheriff. What's the crime rate out there? If the crime rate's high and you got a couple of meth heads 2 blocks down and they're poaching your fish, then will be a lot of fun. So I think those are some of the questions people don't really think to ask, but go back and see how old the pond is. Start on Google Earth. It only goes back, so far, but you can also see if you can find out who built it. If they're still alive, find out from them. Let's see here. Bill Shrum says, how long can ice and snow be on a pond before you should start being concerned? Visibility was 7 feet before it iced over, and there's a lot of plant life. I'm going to tell you, in that situation, knowing a little bit about your pond, 3 to 4 weeks. And if it's longer than that, those plants, even though they're still alive, they're not respiring nearly as fast as they were when the water was warmer. But with snow cover on ice in northern tier ponds, how long the oxygen lasts is actually a function of how much plant matter you've got. So the more plant life you've got, the shorter the lifespan underwater for oxygen levels. And visibility being 7 feet, that's really good for you because that means that your oxygen levels were pretty high because there's not a lot of plankton there to consume the oxygen levels. Okay, how happy are those fish in Bass Pro Shops? Those fish are big and beautiful, but they look pretty sad. I've never met an emotional fish. The only fish I've ever met are hungry. Bass Pro Shops feeds the hell out of them. The ones I've seen, they want to reproduce. Bass Pro Shops can't prevent that. And the others want to defend the territory. They do that a lot because they're real picky about what kind of fish they put in their aquaria. And they're as happy as they can be. And you got to also keep in mind, if we're going to be anthropomorphic about a fish a little bit, which I have a hard time doing that, they're safer in that aquarium than they are in a lake because the water will be happy 100% of the time, every single day at the perfect temperatures, every single day. They're going to get fed regularly every single day. Out on a lake, if the water quality goes to hell in a handbasket, they stand a chance to die. If a flock of pelicans show up or an otter shows up and there's a 10-pound bass out there and an otter sees it, the otter's not going to look at it and say, you know what? You don't look happy. You're 10 pounds. You kind of like it in here. It's going to grab it in this cold weather and play with it for a while, swim around with it on its back, swimming around. It's going to take it to your dock and chew the guts out of it and leave the carcass behind. So I don't know. It's kind of like a zoo, kind of like a zoo. Always a good thing when she is still, yeah, it is a good thing when she's checking in. I have a lot of iron ore in my lake. Would that be good enough as a substitute for pea gravel? It is not. And here's something to be careful about, guys, because iron ore and crushed rock tend to be abrasive, and pea gravel isn't. If you think about pea gravel, it's round because it's been tossed in water, for eons, and it's smooth, where this iron ore is crushed and it's like little razor blades. And when the fish, bluegill especially, start trying to make their way in it to make a spawning bed, then they can get cut up. And I've literally seen that happen. And that's what made me stop recommending, using iron ore. And iron ore influences the pH in a negative way as well. If that's what you got, use it. But if you don't, I'd rather see sand. Ron says, stocked 10 to 14-inch rainbow trout 2 weeks ago, feeding Aquamax 600. Haven't seen any trout, but I've seen a pair of bald eagles. The bald eagles have seen the trout. And if there's any other fish, they're seeing them too. But I don't remember how many you stocked and how big the lake was. But one thing I've learned about stocking rainbow trout in a lake for put and take, especially if you don't stock at least 50 pounds per acre, your catch rates, your return rate's going to be pretty low. But as I recall, I think you put them in there so you wanted to feed the bigger bass. All right, let's see here. William says, with all this ice, we had our overflow pipe locked up. Our first set of holes had water pouring out of them so fast and so much it flooded 6 inches high, created water under the 12 inches of snow. Now, that's pretty interesting. That's real interesting. So the water was flowing across the top of the ice for a football. Huh, that's interesting. All right. Ron says, what is the needed gape size for a double-digit bass to consume maximum size bluegill? Well, maximum size bluegill for you is probably going to be 2 pounds. That's not a dig. That's just a fact. He's throwing some boudin at the screen right now. What's the needed gape size for a double-digit bass to consume maximum size bluegill? Take an 8-pound bass to eat a 2-pound bluegill. And of course, if that bluegill is thick and deep-bodied and shorter, it's going to take a 10-pound or 11-pound bass to eat a 2-pound bluegill. Back to the 10-pounder. How to handle import some oxygenated water transport suggestions. Okay, so let's go back to the 10-pound bass. So the question is, if you catch a 10-pound bass, what should you do with it? Let's say that you want it to contribute it to be shown at a zoo or an aquarium. Lay the groundwork for that first. Let them know that you have a chance at that and that that's in your wheelhouse to contribute a fish. Then they're going to help coach you up as to how to handle it. Now, anytime you ever catch a bass that's 7 pounds or bigger, don't hold it by the bottom lip. You can grab it by the bottom lip, but support the belly with your hand, because I've seen too many bass's jaws get dislocated or stressed to the point that the bass's mouth doesn't function like it should for a week or two while it heals from that. So support it. Keep it wet. If you're going to put it in a live well, don't open the door over and over and over, because it's going to flush and beat itself up. The importance of oxygenated water cannot be overemphasized, because that fish has been stressed pretty much to its limit for the fact that you've caught it. Now, if you want to talk about an unhappy fish, here's what happens. When you catch that big fish like that and you fight it, the longer you fight it, the harder it fights, the more lactic acid is building up in its muscles. And finally, at some point, it gets really, really tired and it gives up and you bring it in. Now it's got to recover from that. That's stressful. It's like one of the analogies I used to use is that fish is distressed to the point where, like, if my 92-year-old dad, if he were still around, yesterday when it was 7 degrees, decided he'd walk a quarter of a mile to get the mail down at the mailbox naked. And a week later, he comes down with a cold, and after that, he gets the flu, and the flu takes him out and he dies. What killed him? The walk to the mailbox. So in the case of a really, really big bass, you got to handle it like it's your first prom date. Support it. Take care of it, love it, nurture it, put it in the live well. Well, don't do that with your prom date. A bass is okay with it. But make sure your live well has got water moving in it from the lake. And then if you're going to contribute it, don't wait. Do it now. If you're going to weigh it, measure it, take pictures of it, knock that out just within 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. Get your measurements, so you, like what Greg McMillan's talking about, so you can get your replica. And then, length, weight, girth. Length, weight, girth. Get those measurements. Take pictures of it from the front, from the side, from the top, and from the other side, and from the bottom. Your taxidermist that's going to make the replica is going to want to see all that. So that's what I would tell you. Hey, it's 8:04. Let's do some commercials. I was just talking to a guy today that's doing some wetland mitigation work up near Sherman, Texas, and he says, "Hey, I've got a In the plan, it calls for where we're doing this, we're doing an HEB store has got to mitigate some wetlands. And the property where we're doing it, they want to have a jet ski dock. You know anybody that knows about jet ski docks? And I said, yes, I do. David Schneiderman, Easy Docks of Texas. And I gave him his phone number. And then as he was talking, David may already know about this guy because they mentioned Easy Docks that's in the blueprints. So Easy Docks of Texas, if you're looking for a floating dock, good folks. I told you last week that I was sitting down with Patrick Biggs, Dr. Patrick Biggs, who's a nutritionist, but he's also a decision maker in the lifestyle products. And he's got, Aquamax and live and game fish chow under his wing. So he's on the cusp of making some decisions that I cannot wait to share with you guys once he makes a decision, and I hope they do it. They got to overcome a couple of production obstacles, but once they do that, get that figured out, then we're going to be talking about bringing back Aquamax Largemouth, but I can't talk about it yet. So Purina Mills, I love their feed. I got to hang out with Cody Borgfeld last week too at the Texas Hunter Products, and Justin Hodges, same thing. He's with Texas Hunter as well. They brought some great products with them. I love their products, but better yet, I love their customer service. Now, I did not get to hang out with Jonathan Lusk with birddogit.com, but I did refer a guy to him. So if you guys know somebody that has bought land within the last couple of years, they need to get in touch with Jonathan Lusk and his team, because there's some tax credits and things that most people don't have any idea about. And not only can he help with harvesting some excess animals or helping curate some events, he's got some farming and ranching strategies that people really need to hear about it. And that's birddogit.com. Let's don't forget about Pond Boss Magazine. Of course, I don't think I brought one. I know I didn't bring one. What am I thinking, right? $35 a year. Say it with me, boys. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. All kinds of nuggets. The January, February issue is in the mail stream. The printers, the flu ravaged their printing staff. So it took them a couple of extra weeks to get the magazine printed and get it in the mail stream, but it's in the mail stream now. So if you haven't gotten it yet, you will. If you hadn't gotten it within another week or 10 days, drop us an email at info@pondboss.com and let us know. John Dyer will be at the next Institute of Higher Pondology, and he can tell you about it. So can Ron Ardoin. Ron Ardoin has been there. I think he's been to 3 or 4 of them, and he keeps coming back. So that means he must like it. Well, the Institute of Higher Pondology, all the beds at the ranch are filled, but we've got a hotel that's 20 minutes away that's very nice, quaint, clean, great hotel. We got room for probably 10 more people, maybe 12 more people. So if you're dead serious about managing lakes, Gregory McMillan can tell you about it. He came. And we do a really good job of communicating. But so we do classroom time in a rustic setting at a ranch out in the country that's got a 15-acre lake. Now we've added 2 hatchery ponds to it. Otto built a couple of hatchery ponds about 6 or 8 weeks ago. Bobby and Jacob have them full of water, and we're going to have to put some fish in there in March to get those little boogers spawning. So it's a great curriculum, a lot of hands-on, electrofishing, the whole bit. And Sarah Parvin's coming from the Slab Lab. She's going to talk about, drum roll, water quality. Imagine that. So we do have space for some others. We'd love for you to come. You get to meet Debbie. You get to hang out with some magical people. And one of my favorite things about the Institute of Higher Pondology is the friendships that are made. I guarantee you there are text threads that go back 6 or 7 years to the time we started this thing from guys that are still sharing ideas and communicating with each other. So there's the commercials. Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date. Okay, let's see here. Okay, get back up here. I think I'm missing something here. Holy cow. Yep. Geotextile cloth down force before. Yes, right. Yeah, put geotech cloth down on the spillway and anchor it so water can't undermine it. If it undermines it, it'll wash the soil out from under the geotech cloth. So fix that. William Scheidegger speaking on a small tangent to otters. Do you have any info on muskrats? Muskrats are not the same nuisance that otters are. They're a minor nuisance to a fishery, but not that much. They don't eat that many fish. They might eat a few, but they're more vegetation feeders. How big do bluegill need to get to eat fathead minnows? Well, it depends. Not very big, 2 inches, because they can eat baby fathead minnows. My grout pond has a ton of fatheads. I would have thought they would be almost gone. No, it'll take them up 2 or 3 years to be gone. Ian, hey Bob, it's been a little bit. Yep. With the snow, how long can it stay on the pond before it could be an issue? We talked about that just a few minutes ago, but the thing is, it really depends on how much aquatic plant life there is, and is there a plankton bloom? Now, most ponds, plankton blooms are gone right now. Now, there's some that aren't, but most of the time under the ice, plankton blooms are going to die. So here's the answer to that question. It just really depends as to how much aquatic plant life there is. I'm going to tell you 6 or 7 weeks is really beginning to push it. Pear David deer are stomping on my bluegill beds, and the ranch manager hasn't gotten rid of them yet. I've asked him to. There's only 2 Davids left. How do I explain the importance of removing the deer? Shoot them and then compare. As a matter of fact, I'll do that tomorrow. Just let them see. So how much is a Pear David deer worth monetarily compared to having to go fix the dadgum spawning beds? There's Bay Miltonberger checking in. Jeremy Day, how long before fish will normally start using new sunk Christmas trees and new logs I put in the structure? 30 minutes. You know, they may vacate the Christmas trees for a little bit as they start to kind of begin to break down. But I have installed, I'm fascinated with this. I've installed Christmas trees, 40 or 50 at a time. I had a customer up in Northeast Texas, and he was friends with the Home Depot guy in his neighborhood. And he collected like 40 Christmas trees one year. Gosh, this was 30 years ago. And met him out there. He had a pontoon boat with the top off of it, kind of like the SS Shipwreck that Bay's got. So we took those Christmas trees and anchored them into concrete blocks and then bundled them. And it took us about 3 hours to get them all out. And then we came back and launched my electrofishing boat, went over every one of them. Every one of them had bluegills in it, little bitty bluegills, which is pretty cool. William Scheidegger, did you ever mention that new fish food you teased? Yep, I mentioned it. Can't discuss it further because we're waiting on an announcement from the company. Is there any disadvantage to putting artificial Christmas trees in a pond? The only disadvantage that I can see is that the non-galvanized metal can rust, and that really isn't an issue because of the volume of water there, but they can break down over 5 or 6 years just like a real tree can. Now, I don't know that they will do that, but I know they can. In terms of the plastic, as long as it's attached well, as that metal breaks down, some of that plastic can break loose. But I don't see it as a huge issue. Matter of fact, I would encourage you, if you got artificial Christmas trees, use them. Leanne, the one that's in charge of Pond Boss World Headquarters, didn't you get another award last week? Well, yes, I did. Thank you very much. Man, like John Dyer said, he's raking in the hardware. So I gave the keynote at the Society of Lake Management Professionals, which is an organization that actually the idea for it came at a Pond Boss conference, gosh, a long time ago, back in 2007. And memory serves, it took like 4 or 5 years after that before enough of us were interested in it. So I got to be a founding member of the SLMP. And then after 5 or 6 years, I kind of just dropped out of it because it was that time for me too. But they wanted me, Bob Robinson called and wanted me to give the keynote last week. So I flew to Orlando and gave the keynote address. They gave me an hour. How hard is it for me to talk an hour? Oh, this is pretty funny. Bob Robinson with Casco he's been around me a lot. He knows that I talk too much. And so he bought a shock collar and he put it around my neck. And he said, when I got the 5-minute warning, if I didn't quit in 5 minutes, he was going to hit the button. Well, he didn't. Then I forgot I had it on. Pretty funny. Oh, award. So at the end of the conference, it was very heartwarming. Matter of fact, it left me speechless for about 10 seconds, which is a long time. But they presented me with the Society of Lake Management Professionals Lifetime Achievement Award. And it was heartfelt, and I felt the heart. And it was pretty cool because 4 or 5 people stood up and says, here's how you've helped me over the years. Here's the things that you've helped with my company over the years. And then I don't remember who it was. It might have been Trent Lewis. Said, how many of you in the crowd, and there were about 200 people there, how many of you have been influenced in some way by Bob Lusk? 70 people at least raised their hands. That's when it hit me. I thought, oh my gosh. I got a little choked up. Dang, only 15 minutes left. These feel so short. Yeah, and with how enjoyable they are. Hey, I'm glad, dude. Thank you very much. So, and really, you know what? The reason I do this is it's not to be in a Hall of Fame. It's not to get an award, although I love that stuff. It's like you're hearing your eulogy while you're still alive. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But what fires me up is that you guys will take an hour out of your day to listen, an hour out of your week or whatever. And I feel like I don't feel it. I know it's my calling to do this sort of thing. My calling is to help teach people how to be better stewards of their land and water. And I'm going to keep doing it till I can't. So that's the way it works. So let's see. We are at 8:16. Let me see here. Okay, so Brian Nutt says, I've got about 9 Christmas trees ready to go in the pond. You just mentioned bundling them. Should I place them all together or in certain spots? Put them individually about 2 feet apart in clusters. So if you've got 9 of them, I would do 3 clusters of 3 trees in a triangular shape standing up. That would be huge. All right, I'm gonna back up here. I'm missing some stuff, looks like. What type of fish are they putting in their hatchery on? Bluegills. We're gonna put bluegills in there first, and I'm gonna see if I can talk them into some freshwater prawns. Those would be really fun. Those won't be ready for the spring session, but they'll be ready for the fall session. Is there a limit for Institute of Higher Pondology attendees? Yep, we're going to limit it to 20. And the reality is if we've got enough tables, enough space for 24 people. So we'll just have to see how that goes. We had 30 last time. We had them lined up around the walls, but that's because a bunch of the sponsors came. We had a number of sponsors, and there's sponsorships available too. There's Leanne knows about the sponsorships, but we've got meal sponsors, we've got banner sponsors, we've got some pretty cool sponsorship things available too. All right, Jeremy Day, I had an orange plankton bloom the other day before the cold. Was that a dead bloom? That was not a dead bloom. That was probably Euglena, Euglena, depending on your water temperature. Look that one up. That's actually an algae that's colored that. All right, Ron says, these guys in Huntsville are screaming in laughter right now. Good fun. Well, we'll see you boys tomorrow. Don't hog tie me. It's the fisheries manager working with animal ranch managers. Going to be an exciting tomorrow night. Yeah, we're going to be hanging out. Jim Allen says the event was worth seeing Bob in a suit coat. Hey, here's the truth. I wear that sport coat to 2 events, speeches and funerals. And that's it. Thank you very much. Let's see. I'll back up and make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. Yeah, I think I got it. Uh-oh, now here we go again. I'm doing something goofy. Uh-oh, I just hit a message. God dang it. I don't know why I do that because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, let's see here. Jim Allen, is there any advantage to putting the Christmas trees upside down so most of the branches are in the shallower water? I have a pipe to support it. That's a really, really interesting thought. Let me ponder that. I kind of like that idea. As long as I've been doing this, I've never thought of it. It's one of my favorite things about Jim Allen from Louisville, Kentucky. He comes up with some stuff, man. So, you know what? I kind of like that idea, putting it upside down. So, in other words, if you got a 9-foot Christmas tree, you're going to put it in 12 feet of water. You want the mass to be in that 3 feet to 5 feet of water. You know what? I kind of like that. That's good. That's creative thinking right there. All right. So John Henry said, this is one of the most important hours of my week. TV always goes off when you go live. Well, golly, man, y'all are making me feel good. So let me see what else we got here. I think we're kind of getting to the end of it. So let me think. Oh, I got to do something kind of cool. There's a guy that's been communicating with me for 2 years. He lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, I forgot about that, John Dyer. So I'm going to tell you this little story, then talk about what John's talking about. So let me just do that quick. John says, encourage the playlist binging on subject viewers had questions about. Okay, so what John's doing is he's going back in, going through these Facebook Lives and YouTube Lives, and he's selecting segments where, like when I read a question like about the Christmas trees, then he puts them into a 2 to 4 minute short, and he uses AI to create the graphics for it, which looks really cool. And then he posts them up to YouTube and then links them back to our Facebook page. But now he's putting together playlists based on the topics. So some of the topics are like fish species or water quality or aquatic plants, or John, you might tell them what all the playlists, how do they find that? Because I haven't had time to dig into that myself, but you might be able to tell him that. And Bill Schrum, here we are at the end of the show. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like, share this video to your timeline. If you can do that, can you share it to a timeline? I don't know what you can do. And you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat, which I'll talk to Leanne. We'll do that. So going back to the guy from Cincinnati. Well, all of his life, he's gone down and spent time at Anna Maria Island, Florida, which is a key or a barrier island that's totally populated near Tampa, Florida. Well, a few years ago, a number of the residences there were just annihilated with that big hurricane that blew through. So he had bought a piece of property, and he's done pretty well for himself, and he's building him a really cool beach house that's hurricane proof, concrete block, steel reinforced, sitting on stilts, the whole bit. And he's right on the beach. Well, in front of it by the street is about a 0.08 freshwater pond. And he's enamored with that pond, and he just wants to make it the best he can. So while I was at the SLMP last week, hopped in my little rent car and hoofed it down there and went and looked, and it's just as novel as it can be. I mean, it's got, what's the plant that manatees eat? It's got some real semi-tropical and tropical plants around it, maybe 8 to 10 feet. It's fresh water, and it looks like it's got to have it's got to have a spring or something in it. I don't know. But that was kind of cool to go do something completely different than I ever get to do. Let's see here. Okay, playlist, hashtag got that. A bunch of baby Christmas trees. They were great for shallow water. Yep. They're close to 60 playlist topics now. Wow, I didn't know that. I guess I need to dig into our freaking YouTube channel, huh? Now you got Euglena algae for a playlist. Euglena, Euglena. Look at that one. I've been enjoying those shorts. Thank you for putting, Jambi, that is all on John Dyer. He is doing that. Look at that. You guys are giving him a little shout out. Thanks for doing that. So guys, we've been going now. Looks like 53, 54 minutes. I think I'm kind of out of topics. Haven't had supper yet. And I know that there's a hotel bar here and a restaurant at the Block T on the 3rd floor here at Texas A&M. And I'm pretty sure, I thought I was going to be home today, which I would have, except the roads were horrible. And I got to speak at 9:30 in the morning. I was going to get up and leave like at 6 in the morning, but the roads have thawed. They were wet, and I know it's going to be black ice tomorrow. So I decided to come on up this afternoon. So that's why I'm hanging out with you here at this hotel. And you guys fire off a few topics to me. Just, send them, just post them. Well, if you want to send them info@pondboss.com or tell John. John's kind of all over this. John is really taking ownership of this, and I'm really proud of what John's doing. The guy's a stallion. He's doing a great job. for us. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up and go see if I can find a hamburger or something, maybe a Woodford. Who knows? So until next Tuesday night, adios for now, and I'll see you then.